shorter now,
Yeah, that's true.
for about 2 weeks.
It's just been nice.
30 seconds of daylight a day.
I 12 o'clock, are we ready? All right, I'll call the meeting to order. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amy, would you take roll, please?
Absolutely. Commissioner Dibdahl?
Here.
Commissioner Wolf? Here. Commissioner Wire? Commissioner Barish?
Here.
And Mr. Mayor Lindsay.
Here. You have before you the agenda for today.
Make a motion to adopt the agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Oaths of office. So, Dan, Mr. Burrish, you'll repeat after me. Raise your right hand. I do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
I do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of South Dakota,
and the Constitution of the State of South Dakota,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of Commissioner of the City of Madison to the best of my ability.
and I will faithfully discharge
The duties?
the duties as Commissioner of the City of Madison to the best of my abilities.
Very good. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Jenny? I do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
I do solemnly swear I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of South Dakota,
and the Constitution of the State of South Dakota,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of Commissioner for the City of Madison to the best of my ability.
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of Commissioner to the City of Madison to the best of my ability.
Congratulations. Okay. Good thing I didn't just sit down. All right, and you will see on the agenda that Commissioner Wire is not here today, so his oath of office will be at our next commission meeting. Okay, moving on. Is there anything anyone wants to discuss on the consent calendar?
Make a motion to approve the consent calendar.
Second. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Seeing no unfinished business, under new business, public hearing upon the application of retail, on-off, malt beverage, and South Dakota farm wine license for Quickstar. Is there anyone here to speak for or against the issue with Quickstar? Seeing none, I will move on to consider approval of the retail on-off sale for malt beverage and South Dakota farm wine license application to Quickstar. Do we have comments or a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I'll give a little bit of background on here.
Okay.
So Quickstar already has a packaged liquor license, and so that allows them to sell off-sale beer and wine. So this new license doesn't change that. They're unlikely to be changing their products based on this license. What they are looking to do is add video lottery. In order for them to do that, South Dakota law requires that they first have an on-off sale malt beverage license. So this hearing and this action today allows them to get that license and then move forward with the video lottery process. And if that's successful, then they'd be able to sell beer on sale in their new video lottery area.
Questions or comments? I will make a note that I am on the South Dakota Video Lottery Commission, but this is not a conflict of interest, and so I will cast a vote for this. Any other questions or comments? Okay, if not, do we have a motion?
Make a motion to approve the application for retail malt beverage and South Dakota farm wine license for Quick Star.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Resolution number 2026-12, powers and duties of the mayor and commissioners. Jameson, do you want to address that?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is an annual resolution that for consideration that sets the roles and responsibilities for our elected officials. The mayor's position comes with all of the duties that are customary to that office, as well as a number of other boards and committees. And then the other 4 positions also come with certain duties customary to those. Of course, the commissioners can move around, but in this case, we did not see any interest from elected officials to change. So this resolution is identical to the one from last year, with Mayor Lindsay serving as mayor, Commissioner Wolf over finance and revenue, Commissioner Dibdahl over public safety, Commissioner Bursch over public works, and Commissioner Wire over utilities.
Questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, do we have a motion?
Motion to approve resolution number 2026-12, power and duties of mayor and commissioners.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Number 13, resolution number 2026-13, authorizing the application for Transportation Alternatives Program funding. And again, I'll ask Jameson to address this.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This resolution allows us to apply for some grant funding to construct a recreation trail from the bypass to the entrance to Lake Herman State Park. So our intent is to follow the right-of-way in 234th Street and go straight west for 1.5 miles. We have found in the past that our community members often are calling for expansions to our rec trail system. We've seen that in past surveys for capital improvement planning, strategic planning, as well as a more recent rec trail master plans and parks master plans. So we know this is something that our community is passionate about, would like to see expansion in. With this particular grant, it requires a local match of 18.05%, because why have an even number when you can have 18.05%? And so the grant could be up to 81.95% funding from this federal grant source. We can request different numbers than that, so if we wanted to increase the likelihood of our application, we could pay for more than 18.05%. However, we did have DGR Engineering run some cost estimates and start looking at some preliminary environmentals, and the cost estimate for this 1.5 mile trail at a 10-foot wide concrete trail is $1.7 million, and so it is a substantial cost. I will note that our 18.05% share would be about $306,000, and we'd have up to 5 years to complete the project, so if we are successful, we'd have several years to plan for and save up for this expense. I have spoken to a few different groups on this. I went to the county commission at a recent meeting to discuss with them. They were supportive of us exploring for this grant. And I've also contacted Game Fish and Parks because we would like to tie in directly into the entrance to the state park there, as they've got a good trail system already in existence. And they were supportive of the project as well. I will note that this is one avenue for us to expand our rec trail system in town. We are looking at a couple other ways, most notably as we are collaborating with the county on the reconstruction of the 2-mile bypass. We'd like to see a wide path similar to what's already on the south side ending up by the hospital. We'd like to see that extend all the way around the bypass, and that'd be a good way of providing some continuity in the community. So if we'd be successful with that project as well as this funding application, that would allow us to have a system that connects both the lakes together to our community and then also runs up the bypass to the intersection there with the highway. So this would be a long-term project, but we'd like to get an application in to get started. The letter of intent is due July 15th, and so that's what we're looking to submit here very soon. And then after that, there is a site visit that's required to look at the site and to meet with some of the representatives from the grant folks. And if those two things are met, then we are eligible to apply for a full application sometime this fall. It's a lot of information, so I'll pause and answer any questions.
Questions or comments? We do know that there's a lot of people that are already, making that trek from Lake Herman into Madison and back, and it's a very narrow roadway, so this would also make it much safer and that for everyone involved, so. Anything else?
I had a quick question. So hypothetically, if we do get this application October 1st, do we have any timelines after that of potential funding?
Yeah, as I said, we have 5 years to use the funding, so that gives us time to plan for it. So if, it's unlikely that we will hear from the results of this grant for next year's budget, and that's okay, because we can take a couple years to plan for this. Ideally, it'd be nice to have the trail system around the bypass completed before we would expand further west. I think that would be a project that would be done within that first 5 years as well. Does that answer your question?
Yep.
Okay.
Other questions or comments?
Jameson, I know we've made some grant applications in the past that have been unsuccessful. Is this a different grant than what we've applied for previously?
That's a great question. So we tried for the Recreation Trail Program, RTP grant, for three times. We didn't apply for this segment of roadway. We were looking for smaller projects such as around the fishing pond next to us and kind of expanding from Flynn Field where it ends now. So this is a different application. The TA grant typically has higher funds available. It does have more work to do, or it has more requirements, and it's a little bit more involved to implement, but there's more funding available. It used to have a requirement of $600,000 or a max, but recently they've removed that. Of course, there's only so many funds available, so I think if anything holds us back, it's simply that we have a large project that might take more funds than some of the other projects, so that might be a hindrance for us. If there was some way of breaking it up, that'd be great, but really, you've just got 1.5 miles of straight road with nothing in between to connect to our beautiful state park and into our community here. So it is a different grant. There are more dollars available, and we're optimistic that the connectivity aspect will look favorably on our application.
The other thing that I'll add is there's been a tremendous amount of competition for those funds too. And so that was also, part of the, reason that we haven't been successful in those in the past. Other questions or comments? If not, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 2026-13, authorizing application for Transportation Alternative Program funding.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Number 14, approve updates to the city commission policies and procedures. Again, I'll ask Jameson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Our first policies and procedure for the City Commission were adopted in April of 2024, and so they are a comprehensive overview of some things ranging from meetings and agenda creation and the process to relationships between elected officials and each other and in staff and in the media, as well as code of ethics and some code of conduct in there as well. So it covers quite a bit. It's been in place for about 2 years, and since this is the annual meeting or the first meeting for a new term, we thought it'd be a good time to review and look at some changes that are proposed. There's a few. I don't think anything is too significant. There's a few things of note that I'll review quickly, and this does kind of go through the memo that was included in the agenda packet. The previous policies had the release of meeting agendas on Friday prior to meetings, and we have, in current practice, been doing them on Thursdays, so we wanted to update that to reflect our current practice. Previous policies also stated that a draft agenda would be sent to elected officials on the Wednesday prior, but since we're able to get the agenda out on Thursdays instead of Fridays, we just removed that from the policy. Additionally, we've noted that we are going to be including attachments of the summary of claims for approval into the agenda packet on Friday once available. And so, again, note Thursdays when we'll want to have the agendas out. Those claims usually aren't available till Friday, so those would be added to the agenda packet after it's been released, but people can still review that over the weekend before the meeting. Another change is the work sessions. In the original policies, we had called them planning sessions. We did change the name on that because the City Commission planning sessions was just too close to the planning commission. And so we wanted to update that, and so that reads as work sessions. Those are those quarterly meetings, and we now specifically list them as the second Monday of the last month of each quarter. That's when we've been trying to get them down to, but those can be adjusted as needed depending on circumstances. Also added in here is that in the case of voice votes that are not unanimous, that we would have the chair call for a roll call vote. This idea came from a recent state law that requires this for executive session. It doesn't require it anywhere else, but it does require that if you're moving to executive session and it's not unanimous, you have to do a roll call vote rather than a voice vote. And that might be good practice for any vote, so that's clear what the voting record is on that. So if there's anything that's not unanimous, we would do a roll call vote to get that specificity. Individuals wanting to speak during public comment may come to the podium when recognized rather than signing in, although we might have a sign-in form for some meetings. So the old policy said that you had to sign in before speaking in public comment. We do want to be opening and welcoming to anybody who comes to our meetings, whether they're familiar with that or not. So anybody who wants to speak during public comment can certainly come on up. Generally, we won't have a sign-in sheet. If there are some meetings where we're expecting a lot of comment, we certainly can still require that, and we would note that during the meeting, encouraging people to sign in, but it won't be required at each meeting. We also put some language in there just stating that we encourage members of the public to speak to agenda items as well, not just during public comment. We are not required to take public comment or participation during all agenda items, but we do believe that there's a lot of value in having members of the public speak to items of interest, so we encourage them to do that. And then finally, on the media relations section, we just specified that the agenda packet that's provided to reporters might come through the subscription system in the city's website. So for anybody who's interested in getting the agenda emailed to them, they can go to our agenda system and click on subscriptions and then create an account to get that email to them, so that once we publish an agenda, you get an email saying it's published with a link going straight to that. And so that just states that for reporters looking for an agenda packet, we would just add them to that subscription system. That's go ahead.
There's no cost on the subscription.
Yep, and no costs on that. So anybody who wants to get an agenda emailed to them can do that through our subscription system on the website. And that's all the changes to the policies and procedures. I'll stand by for any questions.
Questions or comments? Okay, I'm just going to open it up real quick in that. Is there anyone from the public that would have a question or comment on the changes in that we're making to the city policies at this point? All right, seeing none, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the updates to the city commission policies and procedures.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Number 15, authorize lime sludge removal contract with Next Gen Ag Lime. Jameson, I assume you want to address this one? or
I'll let
Ryan?
Mike
Or
Mike tackle. You guys have heard a lot from me. I'll take a breath here.
Okay.
They like to hear your voice, Jameson. Yes, so what we have here is a contract for the lime sludge removal out of the lime pits behind the water plant. Previously, we would get that at no cost because they had a market for that lime sludge. There is no longer a market for them. So they are proposing this contract for us to have them remove that. So they've been removing it for several years. In the past, we have seen costs, I think it was 21 and 22, we'd seen costs higher than what this contract is right now. Right now, it's $15,000 per year, and then the contract would renew annually. They'll remove the lime sludge from the designated cell, contract provide maintenance and rehab if needed, and then they'll provide proof of liability insurance. Real easy to work with, good company. Rick suggested that this is a very good thing to do, so.
I'll just add on that generally a lot of work of this level is included in the budget each year and doesn't require specific commission action. We're bringing this one to you today because it went from not costing us anything to something that was unexpected and is being now included in the budget, which we didn't expect when we approved the budget last year. So we want to make sure that you are aware of this, although Mike has indicated that he believes that we can fit this within the existing budget, so we aren't expecting any supplemental appropriations ordinance. Do you know where this comes out of the budget, Mike?
We're gonna code it to professional services.
Okay.
Yep.
As long as the entire department doesn't go over budget, there will be no supplemental budget requirement. In future budgets, we will build it into professional services 2027 moving forward.
Correct.
Questions or comments? Okay, Mike, if you'd just give the public a brief on why we have this sludge?
It's just residue from the purification of the water. It comes out into the line pits, and that's where that has to be cleaned out. It actually will pile up at the end, and it has to be cleaned out of there, so.
So it is part of the water purifying process?
Correct.
Yep, nope,
Yep.
very good. That's what I was looking for, so. Questions or comments? If not, do we have a motion?
I have just a quick
Yes.
question. With there no longer being a use for the lime sludge, this company, they have a way of disposing of it?
They do. I don't know what their
Okay.
method is, but that's part of what they'll take care of, yep.
I didn't see it explicitly mentioned in the operating terms of the disposal of the material. But
Okay. I can find that out for you.
Other questions or comments? If not, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to authorize the lime sludge removal contract with Next Gen Ag Lime.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Number 16, introductory discussion with Simple Mining regarding digital currency mining facility. Jameson, would you begin the introduction?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We are kind of continuing the conversation that we've had for several months now on the opportunity to recruit a digital currency mining facility to Madison. This would be a interruptible electric load customer that would use the city's large load electric rate, or LLER, as well as the interruptible load program through Heartland Energy. So our opportunity here is we're looking to have an increase in electric revenue, which benefits our current electric customers, and then it allocates the cost to connect them to the system to that LLER customer. Of course, we were previously speaking with Gig Energy, and they were working with us on the interruptible rate, but then they were switching their loads from interruptible to non-interruptible, and that doesn't fit what works for the city of Madison. So we in fact, after that, we had a lot of companies reach out to us interested in doing something similar to this. And one company that stuck out was Simple Mining, a digital currency mining company based out of Cedar Falls, Iowa. They are here today, so I guess I'll invite him to come on up and give more information on the background of his company, as well as the project that they would like to see in Madison. Thanks for coming.
And Matt, there is a button on the front of the microphone, and because this is live and out and recorded, you know, for the benefit of those that are listening, be as close to the mic as you could when you're speaking, please.
I'll be sure to do that, Roy. I'm going to pass these out real quick, just so you
Sounds
know.
great, thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for inviting us to speak to you and potentially bring a project to the community. We are all about local investment. So my name is Matt Hine. I'm a born and raised South Dakota farm kid that went to South Dakota State University, got a couple of degrees, was involved in the South Dakota Wind Applications Center, taught for a little while at SDSU in the engineering department, got into consulting engineering that brought me to Iowa and got me involved in the utility world. In the utility world, finding large loads to help pay for infrastructure is sort of one of the things that doesn't get talked about, but is a strategy that all fiscally responsible utilities do. It's hard to put all of that financial burden on residents. So if you can find a large customer, it can help your local utility. We did that at the utility where I was at. I had the opportunity to transition out of the utility into the private sector and bring that opportunity to other communities. And so that's a little bit about me, a little bit about Simple Mining. The company was founded in 2021 in Cedar Falls, Iowa. So our founder, Adam Haynes, I am not the founder, started in cell phones, and we like to say it all started back in high school when he dropped his iPhone, cracked the screen, and said, "Mom and Dad, I need a new phone." And they said, "No, sorry, kid." Well, his entrepreneurial spark started about then, and he figured out how to fix his own cell phone. This was before a lot of the resources that were available now, or the local stores you could take it to. That spawned a kind of pop-up shop. He didn't have a lemonade stand. He had a cell phone repair stand for him and his buddies and everyone else in kind of the area. He eventually grew that into multiple cell phone stores in the area. Got bored with being that type of entrepreneur and said, well, what's harder than fixing a cell phone and doing microsoldering there? Let me look at this cryptocurrency thing as the next thing to solve. And so he moved into building a cryptocurrency company, specifically Bitcoin mining is what we mine, and grew that into 10 locations throughout Iowa. So 10 different communities that we operate in with multiple utilities covering that service territory. We are a client hosting service, so we are hosting other people's equipment for them. Effectively, what do we do? I won't explain cryptocurrency because frankly it doesn't matter to me. From my perspective, we run computers. So we take the excess electricity that's on the utility grid, we run computers with that, and our sales guys have that be a profitable business for us. From the utility perspective, when the excess electricity is available and cost effective for us, it's advantageous because we're a revenue source and help facilitate that investment in infrastructure. And then when power is in short supply, either the really hot temperatures that we just saw last week or like Winter Storm Fern in January, we shut off. We're not interested in being on at that time. So that's the large load and the curtailable or demand response contracts that were discussed. The sheet I talk about kind of win-win-win, and I've talked about the grid and how we can respond really quickly. We're really only interested in using that excess energy that's on the grid, and then we shut off when the utilities tell us to. Local investment, we would really enjoy investing in Madison, South Dakota. Again, I'm from South Dakota, so I'd love to bring the company to South Dakota. With the university here, we think there's a path for us to find some really good employees, even outside of the university system. There's a good chance that we'll find some good employees here. We're really excited about that, to bring them on board. And yeah, that's, I guess, what is the project? It was briefly mentioned that you guys were working with a prior business. We work with that business as well. It was described as you guys felt left at the altar. We had a project with them. We also felt left at the altar. So I guess I can say I know how you feel when you put some work in and then that particular group leaves you hanging. So we know how you feel. That's not how we operate. We've got a few quotes on this sheet with the blue highlights there from Heartland Power and KFS Electric, the type of company we are, from the people that have worked with us for years. So with that, I could ramble on for a while, but really I'm here just to answer any questions that you might have about our company, about me, about what we do, and kind of the next steps going forward.
Questions or comments from the commission?
I'll give a brief comment here before we get into questions. I should have mentioned earlier, but this is kind of really, it's listed as an introductory meeting because that's what it is. Last week, just a couple staff had a meeting with Matt and some of his team. After that, we decided that there was enough opportunity here that we wanted to bring it to both the public and the commission. So I want the public to know that you guys are here on the ground floor. You're hearing it the same time as the city commission. And then based on the conversations today, we can decide if we want to pursue moving any further with Simple Mining or not. But this is really the ground floor for this new company discussions with us.
And there would be processes for the public and that is here and the public that is listening. They would, if they are interested and the city is interested, there would be processes still going forward before everything would be finalized. So this isn't a decision-making that, yes, it's gonna happen today. No, this is their introduction to us. I have read up on the company ahead of time, and so I've had some of my questions answered already, but this is an introduction to the public. One of the things that we can do by having another load on the electrical system is we can keep our costs lower for our residents. And that's one of the things in that people think, you know, in the, that I hear on Facebook and everywhere else, is that it's gonna cost our public. It isn't gonna cost our public. It's another customer for the city of Madison to help share the costs of our electrical system. So, any questions or comments from the commission?
I could pick up on that, Roy, and just say that is one of the things we wanted to highlight in this one-page summary, which we could make available to other people. There's nothing proprietary in this, is that we would expect to post a 2-month surety bond so that you, through our utility bills, know that you're covered. There's no risk to other ratepayers. We would expect to pay all of our own expenses up front, so there's no risk to other ratepayers. From the utility perspective, if you don't move forward, you have your infrastructure expenses that are just required from maintaining a utility grid. No harm, no foul, we'll go somewhere else. If you are interested in having us come on board, we'd be happy to do that. That's where we work with the utility to determine what upgrades are appropriate. We cover those costs for our own infrastructure. So we're not asking for anyone to cover our expenses. We want to be investing in the community, not in asking the other way around.
Other questions or comments from the commission?
I just have one question. Again, thank you for being here. I do appreciate that a local business is interested in potentially taking up this project. You have stated that you intend on being air-cooled initially.
Yeah,
And then move to a closed-loop glycol system, which makes sense. Do you know what sort of transition time that usually takes place? So if you were up and running this year, is it 6 months, a year, 18 months, or is it kind of?
Probably closer to the 12 to 18 months.
Okay.
We just have some contracts, so that's a combination of, we can contribute economically to the community quickly by starting air-cooled.
Yep.
And then the entire industry that we're in is moving to the hydro-cooled technology, the closed-loop system.
Sure.
So we are moving that way anyway. We just have existing equipment that we can deploy and contracts to allow us to run that equipment. Once those contracts are up, our entire clientele base and our entire infrastructure is moving away from the air-cooled system.
Sure.
And then just to clarify for the general public, the hydro-cooled is the same as your automobile. You have a closed-loop cooling system with ethylene glycol in it. It circulates through the system. It is air-cooled and returned back to the system again. It is not water that is pulled in from the city and dumped back into the city sewer system. It is a closed-loop system, very much like a person's automobile that is cruising down the road today with the air conditioner on in this heat.
Yeah, and the fluid that we run, the glycol solution, is the same type of glycol solution that's used in heat pump systems. So if you're familiar with a closed-loop ground source heat pump system, ours operates in a very similar manner. We're calling the same vendors, the same suppliers to get the additives that we put into the water. And what is the additive? The glycol is just freeze protection, because when the utility calls and tells us, hey, it's January and it's -20, it's South Dakota, so maybe -30, and you guys have to turn off, we can do that and our equipment is safe because it has the glycol in the mixture.
Okay. Other questions or comments?
Hi, Matt. Thanks for being here. So regarding the opportunity this project offers to stabilize electric rates, that's one area that I've heard concerns from the public as far as, seems there's some distrust there or misunderstanding as far as what's the difference between a 10 megawatt interruptible load and maybe the 500 megawatt hyperscale data centers that make the news. And we can do our best to explain how those projects are very different and how an interruptible load versus something like what the previous company that we were working with wanted to pivot to. But it might be nice to hear from somebody such as yourself that works in this, if you could perhaps elucidate a little bit how your project is really helping to stabilize electric rates as opposed to some of the other things that have been making the news in terms of causing electric rates to go up.
Yeah, absolutely. So this comes down to, again, and a lot more peer-reviewed, deep research and economic analysis is coming out to combat the misinformation that's been going out. I know there's a number of them specific to Iowa, but the concept applies across the United States. The United States electrical grid has existed for a long time. And the last time it was substantially upgraded was when we had air conditioning introduced. We've had air conditioning for quite some time. And as a result of energy efficiency efforts, we haven't had to build out the utility grid. We haven't had to upgrade the infrastructure. So you've likely seen single-digit or no increase in utility rates, especially when compared to inflation, all other expenses. We've reached the point now where if it's been 30, 40, 50, sometimes 70 years since you've upgraded your core infrastructure, the bill is coming due. You can't squeeze that anymore and get any more out of it. And so it's just the responsible thing to do to upgrade the infrastructure for a growing and vibrant community. That's happening regardless of what we're doing. That's just a necessity. It would be like running a car, to use Roy's analogy for the radiator. If you wanted to run your car for 70 years but not have any substantial maintenance, you can probably get a long ways down the road, but at some point you're going to have to replace that automobile. The miles on that engine are just too much and you need to upgrade it. That's the cabling, the generators, the substation, equipment, all of those types of things. So those bills are coming due, and it helps utilities if they have a large load that is very cost effective for them to serve. Cost effective from our perspective is that we pay all of our expenses up front. So there is no capital outlay for the utility. They just pass the bill to us and we pay it. And so we contribute through our utility bills to help upgrade that infrastructure to support the community overall and the grid overall. A difference between the largest hyperscaler ones that you see on the news is that they are what's called firm load. It means that they require the utility to provide to them. And so the deal flows that way, where the utility is making an agreement, we will be there for you. We're on the other side, we're a demand response resource, so the deal flows the other way. We make a deal with the utility and say, we will be there for you. So when the community needs that extra power, when prices are really high and they say, guys, we need you to turn off, our deal is that we will do that. So that is the primary difference, is we are a curtailable demand response resource. And so you can read about demand response resources. It's actually nothing new. You'll see this in summertime air conditioner programs or thermostat turn down programs where the utilities provide incentives. electric water heater programs are another program that utilities use. These are all demand response resource programs. They're just small relative to what we can provide. In terms of footprint, we have a very small footprint. So our technology is very high density. It's much more efficient that way. So instead of computers running everywhere in everyone's building, what I liken to say is that the cell phone that you easily carry in your pocket and has all that processing power, it's not doing most of the work you think it's doing. The computers in our equipment or those types of equipment out in industrial parks tucked away next to utility substations, that's where all the work is being done. It's just being sent to your cell phone. So that's like our thin laptops, our thin cell phones that hardly use any power. Well, we've just shifted them elsewhere. And that's a really smart thing to do because we can run the equipment much more efficiently at our facilities. Our facilities are really at the bleeding edge of efficiency. PUE is the computing term. Ours are less than 1.1 PUE. 1 is the most efficient you can be. You can't be less than 1. So a high efficiency data center, like the big names you hear in the news, they tend to run about 1.4 to 1.2. So we operate very efficiently. We take a very small footprint. One of the our operations team always chuckles when I point it out. It's absolutely true. Our largest water use is our employee bathrooms. And we actually have a design where we can be completely waterless, where we don't actually have to have a water hookup. So if the community is concerned about water use, we would just say, okay, we will run our waterless system. We won't even have access to water at the site, so it's not a concern. We've chatted with the utility and you can hook up a bathroom. It's not that big of a deal. But like we have made those offers and done that in communities. Another concern is about noise. We've had a number of communities recently concerned about noise because they were told to be concerned about noise. They objected to our projects. Interviewers went months after we were in operation to get those outrage comments from the community about it. It kind of backfired because they didn't know we were operating. We had been operating for a couple of months when the interviews were done, and the community didn't realize we were actually running. So there were real concerns about how we would be affecting the community, and it turns out they didn't even know we were there, which tends to be our story. We have another community where we've been there for 5 years. Recently, they were outraged because they didn't know we were there. Like, you didn't know we were there. The utility has recently publicly stated we've helped lower their utility bills by 10% per year for the last 5 years. So again, the community doesn't even know we're there unless they're looking for us. We invite people out to our headquarters where we do run some of our equipment. We're in an industrial park and they say, well, where are you? We can't tell your building from anyone else. Like, that's the point. We don't look any different than anything else. We're just a building that runs computers.
And one of the things that is happening in Madison right now and has been on the planning stages for years is we have been upgrading our electrical system. We put a lot of our power lines in that underground. We are upgrading 2 of our substations in that to go from 69 kV to 115. So, you know, it's an opportune time in that to have additional uses help pay for it, because these upgrades are having to be paid for by our local electric users. And so the costs of these and that are not cheap, but they are required. Our one substation is past its end of life and so is being replaced. The other one in that is being upgraded, and these costs are passed on to the public. So, you know, if we can get someone else that uses electricity to share those costs, it helps keep the cost of the upgrades cheaper for our local citizens. So that's one of the reasons in that we're also looking, at your company as an end user to help offset those increased costs and that we're currently going to be paying for.
I joined the company because I had kind of maxed out the potential in the community that I was working in, and I wanted to bring this to other communities. Simple Mining tends to work with municipal utilities and rural electric cooperatives. So I introduced myself as a South Dakota farm boy. Our founder and CEO is from a tiny town in Iowa. A good chunk of our employee base is just Midwest farm kids. So who are you doing business? You can use that persona as a, who are you working with? We go hunting in the fall and fishing during the summer. Our crew is younger, so they video game on the weekend too, but.
I do have a question. What is your decommissioning policy?
The decommissioning policy?
Correct.
Our infrastructure that is specific to mining is valuable to us, so we would want to take that with us. And then the infrastructure that we would have on place, the utility infrastructure, we would, it depends on who owns what. If we own it, we would want to take that with us. Our impact on a site is very minimal. So in this instance, we would be looking at building up a berm and a fence just for aesthetics and sound reduction method. It's also a security item for us. We have some we want to make sure that our on-site staff are safe. I'll leave it at that. And so it would be one where we would want to create a site that is valuable for us in the very long term. So we would like this to be a very long-term arrangement. If the land is available for purchase, that's our preference. Or a very long-term lease, also a preference. We very much have an investment mindset in that regard. So I'm not giving great answers on decommissioning policy because we never intend on decommissioning our sites. We intend on operating them as long as the utility is there. And the infrastructure that we put in place is valuable to us. It's also valuable to whoever else would use that site. So we're just cleaning up a site, putting in a crushed stone substrate, some concrete pads. Our equipment for this type of project, we wouldn't build a building. It would be modular. So I'd say the reason we can move fast as well with the air equipment is it gets brought over on a truck, moved on a crane, dropped in, and plugged in. I'm dramatically oversimplifying it because it is industrial infrastructure, but it's what it looks like.
Matt, I think Amy's question for me kind of speaks towards the longevity and the stability of a project. So it's good to hear that your company has a long goal or long-range approach to this. I think there's a lot of skepticism over specifically digital currency mining. I'd be honest that I share some of that skepticism. It's an area that I always am curious how long it's going to last, and I think we get that question a lot too. So when you're thinking about trying to have a footprint and an investment that's long-lasting, how do you balance that with some of the skepticism that people have with digital currencies?
Yeah, I think the skepticism around cryptocurrency and that type of industry is very prudent. I guess I would say there have been many, we have 10 locations in Iowa, and a number of those locations where a blue chip manufacturer, these guys are going to be here for the next 100 years, folded after 6 to 9 months, and the community came to us and said, hey guys, we could use someone to come in. So there are no guarantees in life. I fundamentally fall back on, and this is why I joined the company. I had to convince my wife it made sense to go to this cryptocurrency company from the stable utility job. And I said, I am fairly confident that we will use more computers in the future. And if that is the case, we will need more infrastructure to run those computers. I'd like to be part of a team that builds that out responsibly and works with utilities to do that in a responsible way. It's not only within the cryptocurrency type of computers, but also the computer industry overall. So the titans of industry within the computing world have acknowledged that they can't come and say, I want 1,000 megawatts and I want firm power and I want it now. They're understanding that they need to act more like our company does, where they approach communities and say, hey, we are willing to work with you guys. We're willing to curtail. We're willing to, you know, come at an appropriate scale for the community. So you can read in the news about NVIDIA, Microsoft, and all of the other companies moving towards how our systems operate, where they're willing to fluctuate up and down to accommodate fluctuations in the load and be there for the community as well. They call us asking us how we do it, so.
And even though you know, we've been, myself and some others have been to the GigaSite in Houston.
Okay.
So we've seen what the facility is. I get the feeling when I visit with some people that they think it's a large, massive computer, and typically in that, the ones that I saw aren't much bigger than what I see as some people's lunchbox. But then there's multiple ones in there.
Yes.
You know, and then there's multiple owners and multiple users of each of those computers that are in there. And so it doesn't mean that everyone in there is necessarily farming Bitcoin. They may be just also storing data. Am I correct in saying that?
Our facility that we would start with, to give you a size comparison, Roy, in the industry, we refer to them as shoebox. So they are the size of a shoebox in terms of how big is the computer. So we can all remember the desktop computers, the monolith that would sit next to our desk. They're substantially smaller than that. They are very high density in what they can do. So they do trillions of calculations per second. So in terms of their computing power, it's very substantial. But again, that's what lets our modern IT infrastructure operate. In terms of the types of data, we would initially start with the air-cooled, and it would be Bitcoin mining focused. The industry is moving towards that more flexible framework. So we're moving away from the shoebox framework to an industry standardized U factor. So we are looking at 2U and 3U factors. So a U is just an IT metric for how thick the servers are. So there is likely an IT room in this building somewhere.
There
with
is.
an IT rack, and it may have a server blade that is taking up 1 unit, 1U of that rack. Our equipment that we're looking at is 2U and 3U. It just means that 1 unit is twice as thick as all. But to your point, Roy, that means that going forward, the evolution of our technology allows us to match right up with all of the other IT equipment technology, that our hardware will look indistinguishable, and then it'll just be up to companies like us to operationally manage that.
Yes, we do have an IT room in this building. And that's about all I can really tell you that I know about it, other than I've looked in there and I see the rack and I see what we've got on there. I can't tell you what any of it does, you know, other than when I can tell you when it doesn't, you know, and then I call Jed.
Yeah, I'm part of the site energy and infrastructure team, so that's my department. Our CFO is extremely gifted in running all the IT details, and that's where I say, I'm not explaining what these things do. That's not my department. I just work with communities to establish an arrangement where we get a small chunk of land, some access to power, and then work with the utility to set up an agreement where we can use that excess energy when it's available, and then when it's not, we get a signal and we turn off.
Okay, at this point, do we have any other questions from the commission?
I have a question, this is more of a question for Mike. I see here on the sheet Matt has down here, the facility has less than a 30-minute response time. How does that compare to our other load management programs? Like if you send out a signal to curtail air conditioners because we need to shave peak, just for comparison's sake.
That's very quick. When we start to reach that peak. Thank you, Kelly. It's very quick. When we start to reach our peak, that's when we start controlling there, and that it keeps us right down around our peak so we don't exceed that. So for us, it's pretty instantaneous when it comes here. So for the 30-minute, I would imagine that comes down from SPP and through different channels, so that 30-minute response time is a fairly quick response time for these centers to shut down.
We can go faster than utilities are generally comfortable having us drop load off. So that's one of the things we work with utilities on, is how quickly they want us to come up or down.
I would imagine it's within minutes.
Yeah. We've run tests and we can pull 35 megawatts off in 2 minutes, which is faster
That's
than
very
you likely
fast,
want.
yeah,
Okay, Mike,
faster.
speaking of load reduction and that, when we see something like that, pulling them down sooner, what kind of effect does that have on the rate stabilization for everyone else in the town? 'Cause
So
right
that
now, a
doesn't,
hot water heater doesn't take that much. When you shut it down, you're not really saving that much. But when you're looking at a load like this, can that bring us and keep us right into stabilization during that time period?
absolutely, yep.
Okay.
Yep, it sure can. Once we start to see that, to get to that certain point, then they get the call to shut down, and that will stabilize that.
So that in itself is a huge benefit to the citizens when we look at the cost per kilowatt hour.
Correct.
And then one other question, because I think it might be something that the public might ask. I see on your sheet here that you are 90% curtailable, so I'm just thinking that the public might want to know, what are you using that remaining 10% for?
Oh, that's, I just can't say we're 100%
Okay.
curtailable contractually. So that is just the cooling equipment. So 90% of the electricity we use will go to that equipment that we can shut down very quickly. At our current locations, especially if we start with the air, that 90% is more like 98%. We have to keep our control systems and a couple ancillary fans online. So our control system needs some power to control the vast majority of it. The air equipment is more efficient, and so that's where we can get the 95 to 98%. The liquid cooled is a little bit less efficient. You can see one of the reasons we're moving there is based on community sentiment. They'd like our equipment to be quieter. The hydro-cooled equipment is quieter. So we're being pushed in that direction. It makes us a little less efficient, but that's what the community wants, so that's where we're going.
And you just answered the question that I was just going to ask you. And we already have information on the sounds, of the air-cooled, and the liquid-cooled is quieter.
Yep.
Because the fans and that are quieter, and that because it's cooling, using the ethylene glycol type mixture, so.
Two very simple reasons that the hydro-cooled, the liquid-cooled is quieter. The first is the fans are larger, substantially larger. So the larger the fan is, the slower it has to spin to move the same amount of air, which means it's going to be quieter. The second reason is the air-cooled equipment, the fans are oriented so that they blow in parallel to the ground, so horizontally, where the liquid-cooled system, they're pointed up, so that sound and airflow is pointed up to the sky. So you just don't hear it as much. In terms of the technology, Roy, you've shared the car radiator analogy. Grocery stores have dry coolers, convenience stores have dry coolers. This is a industry standard type of thing. So those are just kind of your commercial, what's the average resident going to interact with. So if they go to the grocery store and if they happen to drive around the backside, they'll see these units running on hot days. You know, it'll be a big boxy thing with fans on it. That's the same type of thing that we're using. Then industrial facilities use more R scale. It's just larger because our load is larger, but it's the same technology.
Other questions from the commission?
I just want to say, I do agree with you. These are merely just an interface to what we're using the power, where that power is coming from. I also agree that we haven't done the investment for the past 60, 70 years in regards to whether it's streets, bridges, electrical, plumbing. All of that's coming to a head right now in the past 10 years. That's why we're seeing the large investments in these areas across our city, and finding ways to work with a company like yourself who can help bring in that revenue to help subsidize that, whether it's rates or debt reduction. I think that's going to be paramount to cities of our size to kind of continue along that without affecting taxpayers. You touched on a lot of the things that I had questions about, the decommissioning fund, which isn't a big concern of mine. I'll be there the next day you guys leave to take all that equipment because I know what it's worth.
Yeah, you're paying attention to copper commodity prices.
Yeah, copper, silver, gold. I mean, I know all those connectors. I mean, even the things from the 90s, you know, equipment from way back when we pull out control systems, it's worth money. But the biggest thing that I have concerns about is sound management. It's great to hear that you guys intend on doing the berms. I assume acoustic fencing as well. The only other thing I wanted to ask was, is there anything as you guys reviewed the, basically the permits and everything that we've discussed with Giga prior, was there anything that jumped out at you that said, like, we would like to change that? I know you'd mentioned that you'd prefer to own the land versus a long-term lease. Myself, I'd rather stick with a lease initially, to kind of see how this plays out, to see if it works, if everything's going well a year from now, knowing, then I'd like to consider selling the land.
Yeah.
That allows you guys kind of that concrete stability, reassurance from us that we're not going to pull the rug out from under you. But it also gives the community a chance to see how you operate and see what sort of impact it does on the community. The revenue, that's where I think we need to be concentrating on how we can get that into the city to help subsidize our costs, our expenses. Everything's going up. Sales taxes are dropping. Revenues are dropping across the board for a lot of places. So finding some additional revenue with a minimal impact to our citizens, I think is a good thing. I do like the idea of going from an air-cooled to hydro-cooled. It's efficient. It's the way to go. I don't want to see anything connected to our water grid. I don't like to see continual use of water. You know, if it's a closed-loop system, that's definitely something I would support. Otherwise, I want to ask about local investment. It says you are looking to add jobs, maybe hires from here. I know it's not going to be a lot.
Yep.
Monitoring those systems, being the hands on those sites, that makes, but do you foresee taking on any, forming a workforce pipeline through Dakota State? You know, maybe trying to utilize different resources around town to help with that facility, whether it's getting it up off the ground, maintaining it. Kind of what are your thoughts there, I guess?
We try to connect very tightly to the local community in terms of contractor network during construction, also maintenance as well. Given so it was call it a 5-hour drive for me to get here from our headquarters. So this would effectively become a western headquarters location for us. Our operations team is already thinking of it in that regard. How would we do this? So principal that we have over all of our existing 10 sites. This is actually the closest to him. So he would want to build a local team and then kind of spread from there. I don't want to make any promises that we don't keep. So in terms of building out a pipeline of employees, absolutely. So we are a premier repair center for this type of equipment. I kind of shared the story of our founder starting with a broken cell phone, creating a cell phone repair business, and then moving into the crypto mining. So we repair all of this equipment in-house. Other facilities send their equipment to us. So in terms of a local talent pool, we think that DSU could be a good opportunity there. Community colleges, even high schools. So we do have one location where their high school vocational program is very substantial. And so we're actually talking with them about how our local site can potentially connect right with the high school program as okay, soldering is kind of like welding, but when am I ever going to use this? And like, we can bring our equipment and maybe do a site tour with the kids and, you know, that type of thing. So, yeah, again, some of the quotes from the people that we work with, committed to the community, transparent, constructive, that's how we operate.
Sure. No, that's great to hear. Assuming your repair facilities in Iowa, I'd love to see something like that pop up around here. I think we'd have the intelligence, the people, the manpower, to facilitate something like that. So, otherwise, is there anything else that concerned you based on the previous agreements that we kind of outlined with Giga?
There's some language adjustments that we'll have to make. One of the sections, and again, I don't have it in front of me, I remember one of the sections, so it is federal, state, every level of law that we can't resell electricity. So the service we provide is computer hosting. The language was a bit too strong in the original agreement, and it said that we couldn't have any third-party contracts or anything like that. That's the core of our business, so we will obviously need to amend that. Though we're not gonna resell electricity. What we're doing is providing hosting for our clients. So there's a number of language tweaks like that.
Okay.
We might look at the decommissioning and have the salvage value estimated, or look at, is that necessary given what we're proposing? That would be the type of thing where, again, when we're trying to invest in the community, so we're not going to put junk on the site. What we're doing to the site will make the site more valuable. So if we do leave, it will be of value to the next person that's looking at it. So that's something that we've chatted with communities about. Fundamentally, we just asked we be treated like any other business in the community. Instead of worry, like the way I describe it is let us worry about our business and you guys come up with metrics that protect the community and would make sense for any business. Sound levels and mitigation. Well, you don't want any business to be super loud and annoying. So if it makes sense for any business, it would make sense for our business. Those types of things. It's a little bit different because of the municipal utility and then the municipality being so tightly connected, but that's one area where we tend to see agreements are the planning and zoning and ordinances try and do things that are already covered by utility agreements. And so those are things that we can just work through. The utility agreement already covers that. We don't have to have it in this section. A lot of it just ends up being a simplification of the criteria. But I didn't see anything that was a huge red flag.
Perfect. That's all I had.
Other questions from the commission? Okay, while you are here, I am going to ask if there's anyone in the audience that hasn't had their questions answered? Yes, sir, would you come up to the microphone, Nat? And then you can ask it, and then that way Matt will have an opportunity to hear your question and maybe give it a good answer.
Hi, Commission, Mayor. My name is Dan Frederick. For 13 years, I ran the Center for Advancement of Health IT at Dakota State. So this is kind of a general comment for folks, and not disparaging to you at all, Matt. I myself am a South Dakota farm kid, so I get it. But during that time, we hosted lots of different RFPs for lots of different types of activities, including data centers, including health information exchanges. And never in that time did we ever have a representative of the company come in and explain anything but good stuff, right? It was always under the covers where the gotchas are. So my comment, I guess, to the commission, and it's not necessarily a question for Matt, because I think you asked some pertinent questions. One of the ones is the ASIC question, right? I mean, they're gonna be crypto mining specifically, which is not data storage. Am I accurate in that? Okay. So the comment about, you know, is this sort of a generalized data center facility? It in fact would not be. Doesn't mean it can't be, but it just means it wouldn't be, right? So my comment for the commission is, have you got a setup for experts in the field, many of which are right there at DSU, to kind of look at this? Or is the expertise for this decision essentially based here and in the community?
I have not set up a expertise group
Okay.
to look at this from DSU to answer that
Okay,
part of the question. I do believe that DSU and the people at DSU have really been following along our discussions in that. And so if they had or have an opportunity to give us input, I would welcome that. But as
Okay,
far
well-
as setting up someone to specifically say, are we going the correct direction, I have not seen that happen yet.
Is that something the commission should consider? I mean, I understand the pressing need for infrastructure upgrades. I don't know what our excess capacity is currently for Madison from an electric perspective. I understand we have to do that and there's some time pressure there. I'm just not sure it's, 60 days or 30 days or whatever that time pressure is, so.
Mike, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the power that we're talking about, Madison does not have. Heartland, our supplier, has it and is currently marketing it on the open market on a per 15-minute basis. This would give Heartland and the city of Madison a solid customer rather than a floating, amount. So this isn't power that Madison currently has, but it's like a retail store. We have these things for sale, but people want to buy this, so we bring it into our store. And so Heartland, our supplier, is the one that has the excess power that we would be able to use. Am I correct in that? Okay.
I would just add, I think this is a great question, and with anything that we handle, there's gonna be some areas the city has expertise in, or happens to have people here that has expertise, and some areas we don't. We need to go outside and go third party. I think it's a great question. I guess I'd put Commissioner Bursch on the spot. I mean, this is more your kind of world. Do you feel that we've got some expertise ourselves, or would you have some contacts that you think would assist in this way?
I think it'd be a great idea to involve some of those people over there. My knowledge level is related to software and design, not so much the heavy compute of these facilities. I know Kelly is very familiar with the electrical usage. I think we have a lot of intelligence or knowledge up here that can help make these decisions, but I'm never gonna turn down additional information or additional resources to help determine that.
Fair enough.
So, I mean, I think it's a great idea, and if there are people at DSU who are interested in kind of looking over and taking a look at this stuff to make sure it passes the bar for them, that just helps reassure us that we're making the right decisions when we look at these contracts and.
Yeah, I just think it's important that we don't overlook a resource that's
Sure.
local. And I myself am retired, so I just looked around the room and didn't see anybody that I recognized from DSU. Again, doesn't mean that it's not somebody that started recently, but, I mean, I think that's a resource we should be tapping into, because my experience with the vendors, and again, nothing against Matt, because he's doing his job, right? But that's their job. It's his job, so.
Well, and, you know, when you talk about DSU, we do have the advantage, because they have an NSA facility here that,
Right.
you know, even when it was being built, I did not have a clearance to be able to see what it looks like on the inside. So we know that, you know, that they have the expertise, both state and federally, for, you know, those type of operations, so.
Absolutely.
The nice thing about this is these meetings and that are recorded, and so even if we don't have someone here, we can ask someone and that to take, you know, a purview of the information on what's going on today, and then also look at the equipment and that and give us some ideas.
Yeah, I just think that would be a prudent thing to do. And,
I do not disagree with you.
you know, when I was I was housed in the last data center project that Madison built for several years. And things don't always work out like everyone hopes. So,
That seems to be true in everything,
absolutely right.
yes.
So anyway, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that hasn't had their questions answered at this point? Okay?
Hello, Craig Hoffman from Madison. I guess I didn't hear if the load is still gonna be 10 megawatts? Is that the general plan?
Yeah,
So,
yep, that's still the plan.
the max amount.
The load is between 5 and 10, with
Okay.
10 being the maximum available. And we have someone from Heartland in the back that can correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, 10 is the accurate number.
Five
Okay.
is the minimum for the large load electric rate, otherwise they would fall back to the higher rate.
Yep, okay. And is the proposed location the same as it was with Giga?
Correct.
It is? Okay. And there wasn't any issues with that being a landfill that you know of?
It was never a landfill. We have had that quantified by the state of South Dakota. It was a junkyard that we were required to clean up, and that when Highway 34 was being built. So it was never a landfill.
Okay, that did get cleared up with the state?
Yes.
It did? Okay. And how many units was that, I guess I should have looked at, this wasn't passed to the public, but is it the same number of units as Giga approximately, or?
At this point in that, I don't have that answer, but when I do the looking, 10 megawatts in that, depending on the unit, can use anywhere from 1.5 to 2 megawatts each. You know, so depending on how much they put into a container, it could be 8. And that is what they were looking at when Giga was here. And they were looking at 8 buildings, or 8 units that had between 1 and 1.5 megawatt usage each, I believe.
For anybody online, I see Matt shaking his head yes. So 8 would be about the right number?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it'd
Yes.
be,
Please join. Yeah, you can grab another chair there.
So what we're proposing is to effectively do exactly what the prior project proposed, because you guys are familiar with it.
Okay?
We can do other things with the site, but we have the infrastructure to be able to put in place what was previously proposed quickly and start contributing to the utility bill base.
okay, yeah, so it'll end up being, it'll never go over 10 megawatts. So that'll take care of itself, how many units can be there, basically.
Our supplier in
Right.
that says 10 megawatts is the max that they would want to release in that for the city to use.
Okay? Did you have an estimate how many employees may be involved in this?
And the sheet says about 2 to
okay.
start.
right?
Yeah, so again, for just site safety and operations, we like our sites to have at least 2 people. That way, they're not working alone. That would be our intent, is we would start with 2, but again, we're looking at Madison as a potential hub for the western side of our operations.
One other question, you'll be doing all the site work? Simple Mining will do all the prep work and all the site preparation?
Rather than going back and forth, Craig, do you want to just get all your questions out and we'll make sure they get answered?
Okay.
If you have any
Yeah,
others,
that would be,
I'll write these down.
that'd be one, hopefully just to keep the city's liability and expense down. And hopefully, you'll be able to use local contractors, because we're trying to help the city of Madison and the economy. It'd be nice if that were possible. I think that's all I have for now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Greg.
While Matt comes to sit, I'll note that he has emphasized the desire to use local contractors, and then the site work, you know, if we are leasing the property out, we would want to have the tenant, the leasee, be the ones to do all the site work. So this isn't a city project, it'd be a city property that we would lease to somebody to use, and they'd have to do all the site work.
Yeah, and I included these summary notes that I've passed out, and anyone from the public is more than welcome to get a copy. I think it was mentioned we could do photocopies of
Yeah,
that.
we can make copies for anybody else who wants one.
Yeah, so that is just fine. So the 2 questions at the end there were about the site work. Yes, we have an extreme preference towards local contractors. They know the area better than we do, so it makes more sense to us to work local. We at times do have an electrician that comes that is familiar with our equipment, but again, the speed of this project potentially and then the scale of it means we would want to work with a local electrician crew to do that. They're gonna be familiar with the utility infrastructure. We just have someone that's familiar with our infrastructure on site to help the local crew do the work. In terms of the site work, concrete, yeah, it doesn't make sense for us to try and bring someone from someone else. We would be looking for local contractors to do that work. The fence as well. So initially, the dirt work would be creating the berm and then building that up so that we could put a perimeter fence around it. At that point, we would be looking at setting some foundations for the transformers and then the containers that hold the computers inside of them, and then the electrical connections to make it all work. And that's about it. It's a pretty quick process, something that again we can generally guide local contractors to complete that work quite easily. Yeah, who does the work, that again is a major emphasis, is that there's no risk to the city. All of those expenses get placed on us. It would be our responsibility to do that. I'm trying to think of what other, I think that was it.
Okay. Did that generate any other questions from the commission or comments?
One comment, Roy, that just
Okay.
popped into my head. Think about this from us being a black box in the same way that, and I don't know the commission, the people here, but I don't know if you have an expertise in produce management and yet you have grocery stores in town. I don't know if you know all of the requirements for maintaining fuel systems for gas stations, but yet you have gas stations in town. So when it comes to our computer technology, it changes quickly. You guys don't have to keep up with that technology. That's our job. That's literally our business, is to keep up with that. So if you guys treat us as an entity who's providing a service, and then it's what impact are we having on the community? The utility is protecting the utility grid through the energy service agreement. The agreements associated with the lease or maybe potentially a land purchase would govern how we use that land and the impacts we would have on our neighbors when we move into the community. So it's something where I am not opposed, and we would be happy to chat with people at Dakota State or whoever about our technologies that we have. But just saying, you guys don't have to be experts in our technology. That's our business.
I've always cautioned calling myself an expert, because an X is a has-been, the spurt's a drip under pressure. So, but, you know, the nice thing is that we do have this, you know, online, and it would be, you know, available in that for someone from DSU who does have some expertise to weigh in, you know, and kind of give a little insight from their side of it, since that seems to be their area of expertise as well. So, but with that, do we have any other questions or comments?
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Yes.
Jameson, I do have one
And
question. I guess,
again-
just what's the next steps if this is to move forward? I
I was just gonna actually get there. So, as far as next steps, Simple Mining, if they're interested, they're able to apply for a conditional use permit. And, that would go through our planning commission. And if that is granted, then the next steps would be coming back to the city commission for agreements such as a land lease agreement, if that's the path we still wanna go, as well as, electric service agreement. So, not picking up exactly where our former company that we were working with left off, having to go back to get that conditional use permit, and then kind of continue the process through there. Any other questions on the next steps? Okay, thank you.
No further questions or comments? All right. Well, I want to thank everyone for being here, and for Matt for being here and explaining it to us, and we will see what the future brings. And with that, I'll move into number 17, discussion on collaboration with MB Education for the Community Center School-Age Care Programs. And Jameson, would you address that, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is, I guess, starting a discussion with the City Commission that has been going on with the Community Center Advisory Committee for a few meetings now. We've been speaking with that group throughout the summer on opportunities to collaborate with MB. So MB is a nonprofit based in Sioux Falls, and they have a focus on serving women and families. This includes child care and school-age care. Of course, they've opened the MB Learning Center in Madison here, and so we know that they now have a physical presence in town. In that center, they provide childcare and preschool services to children who are aged 4 weeks up to 5 years. So with them coming to town, we kind of open up a discussion with them about potential collaboration. The city and through the community center operates an after-school program and a summer program for youth operated through our community center. And so this is school-age care that we've been operating for many years now. And while we've been doing a great job with those programming, we also recognize that MB is a professional in this area, and being new to the community, they offer a unique opportunity to partner with. And so the question is whether we would allow MB to operate similar programs through our community center, and therefore allowing us to step back and turn the reins over to a professional company that deals in this area. As mentioned, the advisory committee at the community center discussed this topic over a few meetings, and there's some advantages and disadvantages to turning over the reins here. We recognize that MB's proposed rate structures, or not rate structures, but options, they provide some more flexible scheduling. And I guess the easy way of describing that is right now, our programs are available on after school days for that school program, but if there's closures or holidays, then it's closed down. And MB would continue to offer that option, but they'd also have another option where families could use their services on those closure days. So that offers some flexibility and additional services for families that need to work on those days. We also acknowledged and that there would probably be increased programming, a better curriculum through MB. Again, they're the professionals that work in this day in and day out. And if we were to partner with them, we would still see a maintained presence of youth at our community center. It's really important for the city, for the community center, to have those families come through our doors, to see the building and to be engaged, and having those services in the building definitely contribute to that. Some of the disadvantages that we discussed is that if we were turning over these programs, there's definitely a loss of control there. Currently, we can set the rates, we can set the hours, the operation, and if we bring MB on board to collaborate, we're turning over that control to them. So we would have to acknowledge that we no longer have control over what the pricing is or what those hours of operation or anything else are. I'll note again that MB is a nonprofit, so they're not doing this for profit. They are looking to meet a need, and so they would want to look at their projected revenues and expenses and make sure that they set a rate structure that allows them to continue serving. One thing that the CEO of MB, Carrie, had mentioned at one of the advisory committee meetings is that their goal is to provide affordable, quality, there's three things: affordable, quality care. I can't think of the third word. Oh, and safe. Affordable, quality, and safe care for their kids. So if any of those things aren't working out, then they need to figure out how to meet that area. So there was a lot of discussion at the advisory committee. In the end, they were kind of split. There were several members that said they don't have kids in these programs, so they felt challenged to give insight into it. And then others were kind of split over whether we wanted to maintain that control and keep the program or turn it over. And so in the end, they said they wanted to kind of pass this conversation along to the city commission. This body is the decision-making authority for these programs. We also spoke with the governing committee, and that's the four-person board made up of 2 people from DSU and 2 people from the city that have final authority over the community center. But the after-school program, the summer program are separate from the finances of the community center, and they're really a city-run activity similar to the aquatic center as opposed to the rest of the community center. I can speak more into that if there's any questions, but hopefully that's clear enough. One of the areas of particular discussion was how do we set up this program for MB to use our building when it's our building. It's a member-based facility where either community members are paying for memberships or students are paying for it through student fees. So we don't want to just open up the building for anybody to use for free. So how do we get some kind of facility usage fee out of this partnership? We started out looking at a flat fee to MB of $1,000 a month or $1,500 a month. That allows us to get some revenue to help pay for wear and tear, and also recognize that, again, this is a member-based facility, so we need to have some revenue coming in. Of course, any cost we give to them gets passed along to participants. And also currently, there is a difference in pricing between members and non-members. So if you're a member of the community center, you can enroll your kid in after-school program at a discounted rate compared to non-members. And so there was some concern that we might lose that edge or that incentive for folks to get a community center membership. So what we moved to looking at was a facility use fee that is weekly, and it's small enough to not incur large costs for the participants, and that's put on the non-members. So if families are already members of the community center, they're not paying a higher rate for their kids to participate in MB programming at the community center. And if you're a non-member, you'd be paying a nominal fee. The number we threw around was $5 or $10 a week, depending on after-school program or summer program, and that could be set however we want, so we would have some control over that. So that would help to maintain an incentive for folks to join the community center, and would also bring in some revenue to address that wear and tear in the building from these programs being operated by MB. MB has indicated that if they were to take over the program, they would like to have at least 3 months' time to prepare for that transition. So at this point, the earliest we'd be looking at would be January 1. We'd want to make sure that if we transitioned, it would be at a logical time in the school year. And so either August or January would be the next opportunities, but they'd like to have a few months to prepare. So I realize that is a lot of information, and we've talked about this extensively at the advisory committee, but this is the first time we're talking about it at the city commission. It is placed on the agenda for discussion only, not for action. And based on the discussion today, staff can take a direction on placing this on a future agenda as desired. I'll stand by for questions and note that Jamal, our community center director, is also here and can speak towards this topic as well.
Jamal, do you have anything more that you'd like to add?
I'll just add one thing from a finance perspective, is that rates at the ASP program will be increasing for 2027 to cover cost.
And the ASP program is the after-school program for those who, may not have that in their thought process.
Thank you.
Amy, do you know what percent or how much those rates are increasing?
We don't have it set yet. I'll have Jamal come up, but I'll note that a couple of years ago, we split off the finances for, I'll just call it ASP. It includes the summer program, but we split it off a couple of years ago from the community center, and that allowed us to have some more grant opportunities. And I think 3 years ago, we got a substantial grant. Some of that was money that was being made available to the federal government at the time. It wasn't a long-term opportunity, but we got a substantial amount of money. So the last couple of years, we've been able to use those dollars for materials and educational toys, as well as some labor as well. So we've seen the last couple of years, we are operating a deficit because we had those grant dollars that came in and could pay for some things. But at some point, we're gonna have to have, and that point would be the next year, have a higher rates to make sure that we are bringing in enough money for the after-school program to pay for the expenses we're incurring.
Yeah, agreeing with Jameson. We're currently looking at our rates as far as what percentage those are needed to go up. With that, we've seen over the last probably 2 or 3 years, our numbers, just total, have dropped. Variety of different reasons. We see our class sizes at those ages drop a little bit from each class to class. Jobs are getting more flexible, where mom and dad may have a hybrid position where they're working from home 3 days a week, so they really only need that care 2 days a week. So they'll find a nanny for those 2 days, or grandma and grandpa can help if they're local. So it's a lot of different variables to the rates and the numbers total within the program as far as kids and families. So that's something that we're looking into as far as what that increase will be going forward. But it's definitely, I agree with what Amy and I have talked about a lot, is the rates will have to go up regardless of which direction this goes. If we transition with MB, obviously we lose that control of what those rates will be. But if we were to maintain the program and keep it within the city, we would have to increase our rates as well.
This might be a dumb question, but is it self-sufficient? Is it self-funding, the after-school program itself, or is it?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, it is completely self-funding.
Yep, it's set up as an enterprise fund, so the idea is that you set rates to bring in the revenue needed to pay for the expenses.
Sure.
And how will that impact our employees? Like, do we have a set amount of people that are just
Yeah, that's a good
ASB
question.
right now, or?
So as far as employees, we've had a full-time position that runs the youth programs, and then we've had a number of part-time seasonal positions as needed for these programs. We started this conversation with MB before this happened, but since then, the full-time person has left, decided to get engaged and move to where the fiance is at, so can't hold her foot back for that. But so anyway, my point is that we were starting to talk about this beforehand, and one of our requirements was that if MB takes over the programs, they have to take our staff over and treat them well and keep them competitive pay, and they had no issue with that. Of course, they would like to have staff that have experience with our kids and with our facility and with our programs. But at this point in time, that position's been vacant while we've had this discussion going on. And the intent is that once we know for certain which direction we'd like to go, then we can hire accordingly. Any of the part-time staff that we have, I think MB would be very interested in hiring them to continue serve these services and programs underneath their umbrella.
And just because the person has left, doesn't mean the children are left on their own, and that we have other staff members that have been taking turns and that, you know, to fill in the gap until someone full-time is found.
I guess, you know, it says in here that, you know, you kind of want to have our discussion on this, but Jamal, do you have any strong feelings of which way you'd like to see this go?
Yeah, I mean, Jameson and I have talked a lot about it, and we've done obviously a lot of individual thinking across the advisory committee and our staff as well. I think MB would do a great job. At the end of the day, I've asked a lot of people that I know in Sioux Falls. That's really where their main hub's at, and everyone I've talked to has said really good things about their programming. The big thing that for me, I think that'll be a benefit for our families is just the flexibility that they do offer. You know, they, as Jameson mentioned before, I mean, currently the apples to apples comparison would be all after school care and then any planned no school days, things like that. But they offer a lot of pre-selected part-time days for their weeks. You know, you pre-select your week, your days for that week. They offer more flexibility in regards to, okay, we'll take care of all of after-school care with planned holidays, and plan those school days and things like that. And so, for me, you know, having a young family myself, I'm thankful that my wife does have a flexible job, that can, you know, when we need to move things around, we can do that. But I think about some of our families who don't have, a flexible working life that could really help them out.
Jameson, this might be a question for you. Are there any other cities in the state of South Dakota that operate similar programs like this? Or are we kind of unique in that aspect due to our relationship with the community center?
I don't know. Jamal or anybody else?
Yeah, I think we are probably one of the few in the entire state that have that partnership between obviously the community center and DSU and how we just operate on the day-to-day. Obviously our ASP and summer program have its own budget and operate that separately, but we're one of the few.
Sure.
It is an item we talk about in our finance officers group, and I think there's 2 other cities that have daycares. All the others have closed, is what they reference, is similar.
Of course, every city's gonna be a little bit different as well, and I think we can be proud of offering these programs for the many years that we did. And the question for us is, now that we have a professional entity in town that does this, do we want the city and the community center to continue operating, or do we want to turn over to the folks that do this?
As a parent with 2 young kids who are gonna be jumping into these programs next year, you know, I hate to see costs go up, but I also like to see that they're gonna have more exposure to more opportunities, more things there. In my opinion, the government shouldn't really be facilitating activities similar to this that the private business can take on. I don't think we should be essentially competing with private business in that realm. So looking at it from that aspect, I definitely would like to see it go in that route, go towards MB. The part where I kind of reel back again is when we look at exposure to the community center, you know, getting those kids in train to want to go up there and utilize those services, as well as any revenue that helps maintain the facility itself. You know, just because we're making, I'm just throwing a number out there, $50,000 on after-school care, $10,000 of that is going to support the facility itself, you know, versus the other 40 is going to help pay wages, help with that stuff. So I don't want to detract from the exposure for those kids, so I really want to figure out a way to have a facility use fee, so they're still up there, they're familiar with you guys, the staff, what's going on there. And then I also want to make sure whatever that fee is, it is covering the usage. So that way, it's a net win for both sides, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But it is a change, you know, something where our city has been ingrained in this process for how long the buses run to the community center. I mean, everybody knows this is how it works, so it's a huge change, I think, for a lot of families, and that's something that we're gonna have to circumvent to make sure everybody's on board and understands why we're doing this, so.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the big thing to know is obviously with this proposal, everything will remain at the community center, so our kids will still be up there. You know, they'll still see our faces on the daily, as they have different times during the day where they use different portions of the building. And so they get to, you know, utilize the pool and get to know the lifeguards and things like that, as well as be ingrained into all of our rec programs. They just get to walk across the hall into the gym and be a part of youth volleyball or youth basketball, whatever the case may be. Obviously, we run our youth soccer program in the fall and the spring. We'll be taking over the youth flag football program this coming fall, which is another avenue for our families to, again, see and view the community center as a whole, as we'll be managing all those things. But definitely, that's definitely one thing that we want to continue, is to make sure that our kids and our families are coming through those doors, one, creating those relationships, but 2, being appreciative of the facility that we do have in a town the size of ours that a lot of communities don't.
We're pretty blessed in that aspect, and I hope our citizens really understand that.
Absolutely.
For a town of our size to have something like that is pretty impressive.
Do we know if, it's been a few years since I've had kids in this program, so my memory might be misleading me, but currently, I don't believe like there's an extra charge for when they go to a field trip somewhere. Is that how the fee structure will work under this new proposal as well?
Again, I'm not sure what MB will decide to do as far as that. It's currently within our fees, as far as field trips and things like that. So that's how we operate right now. Again, I think that'd be something that we would have to acknowledge the fact that we just don't have control over that moving forward.
Yeah, I know one of the things that I appreciated as a parent, when my kids were in it, was that they had the option to go on the field trip or not. So if it was, you know, if they had, maybe there was something going on that day that I needed them to be in town for later, or, you know, they just weren't interested in going to the Children's Museum or whatever, that was an option, so.
Yeah, and we still do offer that flexibility with that, so.
Has there been any feedback solicited from the parents that are utilizing these services?
Not with me directly. I know, like I said, we've communicated with the advisory committee, and I know that some of our members have kind of put some feelers out and just kind of to gauge some interest and things like that. And I think obviously the hovering cloud is the financial side of things of what are those rates going to be and where are they gonna go futuristic wise, with that.
That's something that, if we're tasked with ultimately making the decision on this, I would like to get some more direct feedback from the people who are actually going to be affected by this decision.
Not only that, but I'd like to see what the rates are gonna go to as well. You know, if it's something that's gonna double or triple, you know, something that's a little absurd, then
Yeah.
that's definitely gonna affect our decision, so.
Absolutely.
Other questions or comments? Direction? I think I heard from two of you in that you want more information.
Yeah, I would definitely like to solicit feedback, or at least, you know, make parents aware that this is a conversation that we are exploring at the city level before we move to make a decision.
Yeah, and we can look to get MB hopefully scheduled at a future commission meeting as well, so you can
Yeah.
ask some questions directly, whether it's about curriculum or proposed costs. I imagine that on the cost side, part of their answer will be, this is what we're looking at starting with, but it's all dependent on what their costs end up being, and it could change over time too.
Other questions or direction? Okay. I don't think we need a motion on anything here at this point, just direction.
Thanks, Jamal.
Thanks, Jamal. Okay, number 18, review of open meeting law and conflict of interest policy. Jameson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In the 2025 legislative session, the legislature passed Senate Bill 74, and that requires an annual review for municipalities of open meeting laws. And then as part of that, we like to add on annual review of conflict of interest policy as well. I feel like those are both good topics worth reviewing every year. So I'll give an overview on this. You can refer to the memo in the agenda packet for more information, and I also included in there the pamphlet that's annually updated by the Attorney General's office that's related to open meeting laws too. Open meeting law is essentially the rule or the principle that the public is entitled to be part of discussions and have a seat at the table. And so that means all discussions and meetings of a governing body, such as our commission here, needs to be open to the public and also have notice of at least 24 hours before agendas are posted. Basically anything can constitute a meeting, so obviously regular meetings, also special meetings, if we have entirely a Zoom or a phone conference meeting, that those are all constituting a meeting that falls under open meeting laws. Emails and other correspondence are also included, so if there is city business being discussed amongst a majority of the body in an email form or other form, that all falls underneath open meeting law. This applies to voting members. So the 5 elected officials, it does not apply to staff. This means that members of the public, staff, anyone else can still send correspondence to the elected body. It's just that the elected body cannot correspond amongst themselves in a quorum fashion. There are reasons to close a meeting. This is commonly known as executive session, and in the memo there is the full section from statute that lists the details on what constitutes executive session. There's 3 of those areas, of those reasons for executive session that we commonly fall underneath. The first one listed, and that's qualifications and performance of employees, not contractors, but if you want to talk about the performance of a particular employee, you can talk about that in executive session. The third one in the statute is consulting with legal counsel on litigation or also contractual matters. And then the fourth one is preparing for contract negotiations or negotiating with employees. So there's contract negotiations, there's employee negotiations. So as we get into union negotiation season, that is a common reason for executive session that will be on our agendas. It's very important that no action is taken in executive session. So the statute allows for this to occur for discussion, but any action that must take place has to take place outside of that executive session. So if there is, we generally don't have action after executive session, but if we do need to do that, we would have a motion to leave executive session. We'd open the doors up to the public, invite anybody who's still waiting to come back in, and then that action would be taken and included in the minutes and available for all to see. If there's any violations for open meeting laws, for example, if action is taken during a meeting that's not correctly noticed, that could be declared null and void. If there is an email that goes out amongst a quorum, that could be a violation as well. And then to best handle that, we recommend disclosing that communication. So if there's an email that went out discussing city business amongst a quorum, we could put that in the next agenda packet and make note of this correspondence that happens and that happened, and that helps us to get back into compliance with the law. If there are severe instances, we can be referred to the Open Meeting Commission. They meet periodically throughout the year to hear items such as this, or such as any items related to violating open meeting laws. And then we could also be subject to a Class 2 misdemeanor, which is punishable by up to 30 days in jail or a $500 fine. So even regardless of those consequences, just for the purpose of good governance and being open and transparent with our community, of course, it is very important to us to follow those open meeting laws. Any questions on open meeting law? Okay, I'll go over conflict of interest. There are 4 types of conflict of interest. This is in our policy. It's in the commission policies and procedures that you approved earlier in this meeting. And then we review it annually here. And this is found in state statute. So the most important type of conflict of interest is direct pecuniary interest. This means that someone is voting on a manner that financially either benefits or harms themselves directly. So that's a direct and pecuniary or financial interest. Indirect pecuniary interest means that it is financially related, but it's not to the voting member. It's to somebody close to them, such as a family member or their employer. That'd be indirect pecuniary. And then the other 2 are non-financial related, and they are direct personal interest. That is voting on a matter that benefits that member or a close relative or close friend in a non-financial way, but of something of great importance. And then the last one is indirect personal interest, and this is specifically, again, non-financial, but related to benefiting an organization that person is a member of, benefiting or harming. So they're a little different there between how they split up the personal versus how they split up the pecuniary. The most important one, again, is that direct pecuniary interest. So if you are financially benefiting or being harmed from matter, that is really the most important conflict of interest. And so if you have that type of interest, you have to recuse yourself from the discussion or the vote. If you have any of the other types, you need to disclose that, but then you can determine whether you are biased or whether you can still vote in a fair manner on that item. So you might be a member of an organization and need to disclose an indirect personal interest, but if you feel you can still vote on that matter in a non-biased manner, then you can proceed. However, if you disclose one of those interests and you want to vote on it and the rest of the body feels that you are in fact too close to something and want to or should recuse yourself, the rest of the board can vote to require you to do so. That requires a 2/3 vote, and if that passes, then you would have to you'd be disqualified from voting on that item. You'd have to recuse yourself. So whether you step down yourself or the board asks you to, or if it's direct pecuniary interest, if that happens, you should recuse yourself from the discussion. Ideally announce that at the beginning or before any discussion occurs. And especially if you would like to speak to an item, because you are all still private citizens, you don't give up any of those rights, you would want to move to the audience and then speak as a member of the audience and not in your official capacity as an elected official. Any questions on conflict of interest?
Questions or comments? It's pretty standard. We review it every year, both of these. And then we also acknowledge whether or not we have a conflict of interest on a subject or a topic, so. No other one? All right. Number 19, July 26 finance updates.
This is the first time we're moving kind of timelines for the finance updates. This is the July update, because we are in July. However, it's reports on May financials. We moved those back a little, or, yeah, I guess back a little bit to allow for sales tax dollar timing. So some quick notes is the 2025 audit field work is complete. They have been on site and finished last week. The 2027 budget cycle is underway. Department budget requests open July 1st and are due back to the finance office on August 1st. Just a reminder to the public that nonprofit funding requests are due by the end of this month, July 31st. And this up-to-date, again, covers through May, which is 41.7% of the year. Cash.
Amy, quick
Yes,
question.
absolutely.
So, last year, we decided to do some sort of, just like a one-pager application for those nonprofits, right? So is that what they're filling out, or if they're just filling out their request?
Yeah, it's just an application, one-page process, yep.
Okay.
And that is also listed on the city website, or they can pick it up in person if needed.
And is, do we do any more public promotion of that, the nonprofit funding? Or is it just kind of like the ones that have participated in it, they know about it and so they know to go find it in July? How are they aware of that process going on?
Yeah, it is posted on the city website under the finance section. We do have a presentation that we do annually, or we did last year, on nonprofit funding. And then we send out reminders that it is due at a certain time.
Okay, so like the organizations that have received funding in the past, they're on an email list that get communicated to directly?
Correct.
Okay, got it, thank you.
Yep. Anything more on nonprofits? Okay. Cash on hand, general cash, we have 12.34 million. Investments, 2.72 million. Checking, 6.64 million. Money market, 574,000. Certificates and other, 832,000. The electric construction count, 1.58 million. And in restricted cash, we have 646,000. And our revenue guidelines. Overall, the city's finances remain in a strong position currently. Most funds are tracking near budget, with many of the larger variances attributed to the timing of transfers, debt proceeds, tax collections, and capital projects. Utility operations continue to perform well and will continue monitoring revenues and expenditures as construction activity and tax collections increase throughout the summer. Expenditure guidelines. I'm going to move quickly through these. Just let me know if you guys have any questions. Profit or loss for May. Profit or loss year to date. And our sales tax, currently showing 5.47% down for the year. We are continually monitoring this month to month, and will continue to do so as additional collections come in throughout the year before drawing any long-term conclusions or building budgets. The graph for 26 currently. And this is our new slide, which shows our rolling average, which currently puts us at 4.06 rolling. Oh, I'm sorry, 2.45%. Thank you, Jameson.
Yeah, and I'll speak to that briefly. So especially with the chart, you see the ups and downs. I mention that every month. And so we tried to find a way where we can smooth some of that out and have data that we can make more sense of. And so I'll put it this way, at the end of the year, when we've had January through December available to compare to the previous January through December, that 12 months is quite useful. And then previously, we jumped to January, we'd only compare 1 month to 1 month, and that's not as useful. So this just looks at the previous 12 months, and every month as we go on, it'll look at the previous 12 months compared to the 12 months before that, just like we would at the end of the year. And so rather than seeing that we're up 40%, down 30%, up 20%, this smooths that out. And it does show kind of what we assumed it would, that the numbers were down over the last year, but now we have a better idea of how much we're down. And it seems like generally 2 to 3, 4% is what those sales tax numbers are looking down. Any questions? Okay, I think that's it.
And if anybody has any other questions more detailed on the finance slides, just let me know. We are under a Zoom limit. It's going to time out on us, so we're just trying to rush to the end of that.
All right. Questions or comments? And then just, I'll make a comment. We went through this pretty quickly in that, but the commission did have it available since Thursday. So we've had plenty of time in that as individuals in that to look things over, so. All right. With that, do we have any public comment? Yes, sir. If you come up to the microphone and introduce yourself for the general public, we'd appreciate it.
Okay, we'll try that again. My name is Darrell Killian. I am more or less a lifelong resident of Madison. I was born in the Madison Community Hospital, what is now known as Heston Hall, up on DSU campus. And I've spent most of my life here with the exception of time in the military and about 10 years in Watertown. I started keeping bees at the age of 12. And I kept those bees on Center Street, where my folks lived. And I kept them up until 10 years ago. And I normally kept about 20 to 30 colonies of bees a year. And up until about 10 years ago, I kept those bees in town. Not all of them, mind you. I kept actually only about 4 hives of bees in town, sitting on my patio. And the balance were out, some were out at the Reineke gravel pits, some were out on the west side of town. Since that time, I got out of beekeeping because it's just too hard on an old guy like me to do that. And so, over the years, I've stored all of my equipment in my garage and in my shed, which gives it a distinct odor to a bee, not to anybody else. And bees there are bees living in town, wild hives, probably not many because they don't survive the winters well up here anymore. But those bees swarm from time to time. And over the past 10 years, I've had numerous occasions where I've had a swarm of bees come into my backyard, hang up in one of my trees or something, which doesn't bother me in the slightest. And normally they look around there and see if there's a place they can establish a hive, which I don't allow them. But then they move on and go find a hollow tree or a wall or a attic or something to get into. My point being is they don't leave town. They were here to begin with. They'll probably be here when they settle down again. So what I'm here today is to ask that the city, I was advised back in 2011 that I wasn't able to keep bees in town, that there was an ordinance against it, which of course, as far as I knew, since I was 12 years old, it was never an issue. But anyway, I actually challenged I don't remember who was talking to at the time, challenged him at the time, and the police went back and got a piece of paper and came back and showed me the ordinance. Okay, fine. I got the bees out of town. Like I say, 10 years ago I resigned, I quit keeping bees, but now I'm thinking I just had a swarm move into my backyard a few days ago, hanging up in my apricot tree, and I got a box that looks, well, it is a beehive box that I've had in my garage, and I thought, I'll bet if I put that out there, those bees will move into that box. and I can then call the fellow that I sold all my equipment to come and get them. Well, it didn't work out so well. They hung, I talked to the chief of police for 15 minutes, and if we got done, I looked out, and I told him, when I got off the phone, I says, I'll bet you they're not even there anymore. Somebody had complained that I was keeping bees in town. That brings me to where I am right now. I've decided that I want to keep a hive of bees in town, and I did some research on this. I found that of the 15 largest towns and cities in South Dakota, and that would be your first page that I give you, Madison is among those 15, and of all those, only 2 prohibit the keeping of bees in town. One would be Madison, the other would be Harrisburg. On the reverse side of the coin, Sioux Falls allows that. There is an ordinance specifically allowing it, and so does Brookings. All the other cities in that list, as near as I can determine, do not have an ordinance one way or another. So for all practical purposes, out of the 15 largest towns in the state, 13 of them allow beekeeping. Madison and Harrisburg does not. So what I am here today to ask you is that you consider that ordinance and strike the bees from that ordinance. Most of the towns don't even have, they don't have anything regarding the keeping of bees. Sioux Falls has a very lengthy and drawn-out program, which I think is probably way more than I would guess we would want to keep track of, because now you've got to do all this tracking and everything. And Brookings has a very basic program that allows people to keep bees in town, no permitting or anything like that. They're just allowed to do it as long as they meet certain rules. And I guess my preference would be that you just don't have an ordinance at all on it. But I understand that it maybe isn't necessary the way you see it. I will tell you that having kept bees for 12 years, I've never found too many people like to get up close and personal to a beehive. So, you say I guess I wouldn't be terribly concerned about hundreds of people running out and getting a beehive in their backyard, but you never know, I suppose. So I guess that's up to you folks. That's my sum and total of what I've got here. I'll answer any questions you might have.
I've read the Brookings policy, and I don't have any issues with it. We have bees in town anyway, all different types of bees.
That's right.
The bees that seem to be the ones that do not bother people so much are the bumblebee and the honeybee. The ones that do happen to be the hornets, and you know, and I do not see them, you know, wanting necessarily to move into a beehive.
No.
So, I did, after seeing, you know, and hearing that you wanted to bring this forward, I did some looking into it, and yes, we used to have beehives in town. And do I see a number of people in that want to do that? You'd be the first one right now that I would say would want to, because you're here. Beyond that, I couldn't tell you anyone who would. I do know that we have friends in Rochester, Minnesota that have beehives in Rochester, and their kids are involved in it, have all the, and that, and take care of all of those things. So I, for one, am not opposed to it at all. So it's something in that I think, you know, I'll open it up to the rest of the commission for comments.
Do you know why it changed back in 2011?
I did a little bit of research, so obviously Daryl gave me a call last week, and I encouraged him to come speak at public comment. All that I found was that it passed, I just had it pulled up here, give me a second, with Madison's ordinance 1510, and that was in 2011. It looked like that was a complete repeal and replacement of our entire chapter on animals in city ordinance, so it wasn't specific to just bees. I think it did the whole animals chapter, but prior to 1510, I don't think that anything related to bees was in there, and after 1510 passed, it simply says that there's no beekeeping allowed in Madison. It's a very short section.
Yeah, I tried to go back and find it, and Munich Code only goes back to 2012, so.
Just passed.
Well, now keep in mind, when I started keeping bees, I was 12 years old. That's considerably earlier than 1970. And I'm just trying to give that some context of, originally, when I kept, my dad and I worked together keeping the bees. Some of you may know my father, Rex Killian. He worked for the city for a very long time. And, he and I kept the bees, and we had them in the backyard on 722 East Center, which is now a park. And, it was just perfectly fine, you know, there was no problem. And somewhere along the line, that changed, and I was made aware of it in 2011. And,
Definitely, I'd be in agreement with Mayor Lindsay. I don't see any issue with something like this, but I also understand that you're not the beekeeper that I'm worried about. It's the other people who want to jump, 2 feet into it and get involved into it, and that might cause some issues. I definitely lean towards the Brookings ordinance. There isn't a permitting process, which I don't think we need to go to that level. But it does take care of, making sure they're placed in the right areas. There's not a lot of them. The only thing I really would be concerned about is interferes with neighbors' use and enjoyment of their property. That's a pretty broad general statement. I mean, I think you need to make it within reason or have some way of determining whether it's a nuisance or not.
doesn't the Brookings ordinance spell that out probably?
That's the problem. There's probably another ordinance that specifies what is a.
Well, I know the Sioux Falls ordinance breaks it down.
And that would be my concern, is how do you
Yeah.
take each one of those individual statements and how does that law apply to those individually? But I think it's, whether it's chickens, bees, as long as it's not impacting, neighbors, the community, and you're being self-sufficient, more power to you.
Yeah, okay.
This may also be a good time to revisit, I believe a couple of years ago, there was some interest and discussion from citizens about having pollinator gardens. Jameson, maybe you recall this. I believe at that time, the commission didn't really take any action on it. Is this ringing a bell?
Yeah, there was,
Kelly, you were there.
Well, yeah, I was just gonna say, I think that was more about the height and the proximity to the
And-
road.
Yeah,
it
it was
was-
in the,
yeah.
something about people
It
wanting to
was
do
in the boulevard. It
Yeah.
was in the
No.
boulevard.
But
They
it-
have them in the backyard, but in the boulevard, in that it became a visual danger for people in that
Right.
because of the height of what was there. So it wasn't necessarily a change of ordinance, it was.
When I kept bees
location.
on my patio, we used to sit there in our chairs and, in the afternoon, the bees were about doing their thing. We're just sitting there, not 5 feet from them, and we never had a problem with them. I rarely get stung, and usually if I do, it's because I'm really getting really close and personal. Or at least that's the way it was always in the past. That might have changed, I don't know, but.
No, honeybees are generally not very aggressive.
Yeah.
And when I
No.
see them in my yard, I actually kind of wonder, I'm like, where the heck are these coming from? Because I
Yeah.
want to go find it. But the wasps, on the other hand, or.
And one of the reasons that I brought bees into town back a long time ago was so that people's fruit trees and gardens and so on could benefit from having bees in town, because there were no bees close into town from the outside, so, and that helps the people that are growing their not tomatoes so much, but help them grow in their garden produce. And I know people probably got more apples in their apple tree than they want, but
Right now in that I don't. And my neighbor used to, half a mile away, used to have hives there. And this year in that, we were disappointed that none of our fruit trees in that are really producing anything. And so I checked with him and he says, well, the gentleman who had bringing hives decided to keep them down south. So right now I don't know of any hives nearby where I'm at, just south of town with the orchard. And so this year and that, the fruit is not there.
there's obviously a wild colony somewhere in town, because I had a swarm of bees hanging in my apricot tree. And they don't travel very far when they swarm. They only go a couple hundred yards maybe from, so I'm guessing it's probably right in my general neighborhood somewhere. And then when once they decide where they're gonna go, then they'll take off, and they might go another half a mile, but they'd stay pretty much in town. And,
You can correct
but I don't
me.
think there's a lot of them.
You can correct me if I'm wrong, but what I was told was is that they typically don't travel much more than 3-mile radius.
Right, that's exactly right. In fact, it would take a really hard year for them to go that far. And so one hive of bees can't hardly serve all the needs of the pollination in this town. But they'll try.
Well, from my standpoint in that, I guess I would like to direct our staff to take a look at the possibility of seeing if we need and what we need for an ordinance and that to allow it.
Okay, we can do some initial research. He's brought some great research for us here today. We'll do some of our own as well. Bring together some proposals for you for future discussion and possible action.
Yeah, and I just encourage us to communicate it to the public too, so if there is strong opposition, or that we hear those too.
No, there's always people that are gonna be afraid of them.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. I've seen people come completely out of their skin because a bee went by them. So, I mean, you know, that's the way that is. But quite honestly, actually, I was allergic to bee stings for 20 years or more. Something changed, and now I'm no longer that way. I haven't been for probably another 20 years. But 2 stings had put me in the hospital. I used to end up in the hospital up there on Heston Hall, a couple of times for bee sting. So,
That was a day ago.
huh?
That was at least a day ago.
A couple, yeah, not probably more than that.
So, all right, well, thank you for bringing that forward.
Well, thank you for your time, and show up like next meeting to see what you think on this, or?
Yeah,
Afterwards, let me get your number again, because it might be a couple meetings, but
Oh,
I can let you know.
okay.
I want to give you a call when we are ready for it.
Sure, very good.
all right. And under announcements, our next regular commission meeting will be Monday, July 20th at 5:30 PM. And we do have openings on 2 of our committees, the Sidewalk Committee and the Madison Housing and Redevelopment Commission. And at this point in time, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Make a
So
motion.
moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, everyone.
How's it going?